Good morning, everybody. It's Mary Jane, Riverside County broker with Allison James. I'm your Tech Tuesday for today. Well, first, let me tell you that California is experiencing a freezing 48 degrees last night, and we're all bundled up here. I'm sure that'll get a laugh across the nation.
Right.
Right. I have the pleasure today of being with Justin Lonson from RC Energy Solutions. We're going to talk about solar today. I am really finding that agents are falling in a hole quite a bit with that. So I reached out to our best solution. Justin taught a class for us a couple years ago and has been our local source. So I wanted you guys to have a chance to hear from him. Justin, you want to talk a little bit about your experience?
Yes. My name is Justin, as she mentioned, with RC Energy Solutions. I've been in this business for over 15 years. And, our focus is a little bit different. We focus on a holistic approach with homeowners on how they're using their energy and come up with different solutions. But one of the major things is solar energy. And what we found with real estate agents is a lot of times they're not sure where to look to find out how these things have been, purchased, how a lot of times the homeowner doesn't even know what the heck they got themselves into. So
there's been a lot of fear out there,
absolutely.
Myself included. 35 years in the business. This is kind of new for us as well. And so I just wanted to have the best information for our team. I'd like to talk about the type of solar ownerships that are out there. First, it was starting to feel to me like there were thousands. I've had people post on the MLS that it was a paid off solar, turned out to be a paid off lease. We just witnessed a $20,000 settlement, not in our company, because the buyer got all the way to close, moving truck, the whole bit before the lease got discovered.
Okay.
And the listing agent had to buy off with his commission. So we want to avoid anything like that happening to our agents. I was happy when you told me what the types are that exist out there.
Yeah, so there's really, well, I shouldn't say really, there's only three types of ways to have a solar system. And two of the big ones that we hear out there is a lease and what's called a power purchase agreement. And these are very similar in the sense that, the homeowner puts no money down, so it sounds really nice and easy. They also don't get the tax credit. They're for specified periods of time, up to 25 years. Usually 20 to 25 years is kind of the norm. And then there's no buyout options in the first 6 years, which I'll get to in a second. And, the reason for that is because when you're doing a power purchase agreement or a lease, the company that is providing that actually owns the system. So really what you're doing or what the homeowner is doing is swapping out their utilities. So no matter who your utility is, you're just, supplementing that at a lower cost with whoever the provider is. And so I've found, because I do work with real estate companies, as I'm here today, to help educate them, is that when homeowners get into these leases or power purchase agreements, and then 3 years later they want to sell, there's these big penalties.
Yes.
And the reason is because when the company providing the lease or power purchase agreement, they get the tax credit, but they also get to depreciate the system over the first 6 years. So it's a huge benefit for them. And so if they're not able to obtain all of their benefits, they're going to tack on a huge penalty to the homeowner for trying to, prepay it in advance. And so this can be an issue when you're purchasing a home or you're listing somebody's home. And so the big difference between a lease and a power purchase agreement is this. A lease, you rent the equipment, the solar panels, the inverter, and it produces a certain amount of energy based off of the size that is created for your home based off how much energy you're using. Now, a power purchase agreement, they spin it a little bit differently because leasing, the term lease became very negative. And so power purchase, it has the term purchase in it. So many homeowners feel like they're owning something, but in reality, it really is just a time period, a commitment of 20 to 25 years, but you don't own the system. And the way it's spun is that you own the power. And so you're purchasing power, based off how much you're using over a specific period of time. And so you're buying it at a lower rate. But in a sense, it's very similar to the lease that the person providing the power purchase agreement owns the system. And at the end of that term, there's things that have to happen. And one of the biggest confusions is when somebody has what's called a prepaid lease or a prepaid power purchase agreement. Then they really feel like they're owning it because they're putting down a lump sum up front, and then they don't have any more payments for maybe 20 or 25 years.
And that's where they're telling their agent that we have in the MLS a full paid off.
Exactly.
And then in the TDS, in this case history that I observed this last couple weeks, it was again repeated in the transfer disclosure statement that it was a fully paid off solar.
Yes, and it's just maybe paid off for that period of time, and so therefore there it needs to be transferred. There's other things that you need to find out. So I would say those are the biggest. Now the third option is an ownership system. So this is where you actually own the panels, you own the inverter, and you own all the power that it makes. And there's different ways to pay for this. Cash is obviously the easiest one, right? Taking out of your savings or 401k or cashing in some stocks. There's also finance options as well, but these are unsecured loans, so they're personal loans to the homeowner. These aren't transferable to the new buyer. The homeowner has to take care of these on their own, whether it's at the sale of the home or later on down the line, because it is a personal loan to them.
Including maintenance of the panels and
maintenance is on the homeowner as well. But in the state of California, for solar systems, it's a minimum of 10 years that mandated by the California State License Board. So you get minimally a full 10-year warranty on labor for any solar system installed. So it is a pretty long time, and there's very little maintenance. So I think some of those things are a little misconstrued when
it seemed like I've come to started thinking of it as a sales pitch, if you will, that we're going to maintain it.
Absolutely.
You're not going to have that headache.
Exactly.
But there's not much maintenance, and you may be choosing a power option that is just swapping out your electrical, not actually replacing.
There's not a ton of maintenance. It's similar to your heating and AC system. I mean, there is some maintenance, but there isn't that much. So some of us, we never maintain our AC or heating system. It just works great for 30 years. And other of us, we're that percentage, and it's the same with solar, but I do believe that. Now, one of the other things is on an ownership system is called PACE, which is Property Assessed Clean Energy. And some of you may know it as HERO, CalFirst, Y-Green, E3, PACE funding. There's 15 or 20 of these PACE programs now. And what PACE is, it was a law that was passed back in 2008, I believe. It's called Assembly Bill 811. And so this had to get passed through the state, city, counties, and this allowed people to borrow 10% up to 15% of the value of their home for energy efficient home improvements and then pay it back through their property tax bill. And so this one is used a lot for solar as well, but this is the scary one because it can be used for heating and air conditioning, drought tolerant grass, windows, insulation. There's a lot of other improvements that are available. And so, but the one thing about this program is it is an ownership system. So it's owned by the home, and when it's paid off, there's nothing else that needs to happen. It's owned free and clear. The interest rate is tax deductible on this one, and the time periods that these can be financed is 5 years to 30 years. But this also affects the transaction as well because it becomes the first lien holder. And so for when you're homeowners, again, they might think that they own the solar system through a PACE program, which they do, but there's still a loan that's, it's a special assessment. It could be transferred. It might need to be paid off.
We're also finding that I'm reading in the papers that there's a legal challenge of placing anything ahead, because property taxes are the only thing that go ahead of the first mortgage. And so by essentially putting on the weight of a second mortgage in the first position ahead of the first lien holder, it makes it very hard for the net sheet when it's time to move on or you want to pay it off. So it matters a lot. I've also learned as an agent for the PACE system, or in general, when anyone tells me they have a HERO program, when an agent calls me, I always say, what did they get for it? And that my suggestion to the agents is that they prepare some sort of fact sheet. I've got one of my agents, coaching student, Jacob Coriosi, digging up a year's worth of the bills before and a year's worth of the bills after the full contract, the payoff. We even ordered a payoff statement, what it would look like if we paid it off today. And I really feel like we have the best script on solar. We're gonna, for the Allison James agents who are watching, I've approached our wonderful Jill Lemons and asked if we could add a single line to our listing page on SkySlope so that you have a place to put these things every time, and I can help you avoid disaster if NetSheet and that sort of thing. Again, I'm finding the clients don't even know what they have, which is really scary. So the agents really need to get a copy of that report, don't they? What else can they do to protect themselves?
Well, I think that's, my wife, Tracy, being a realtor and us going through this, what we found is that, front loading your efforts is the best thing, because what we've learned is looking on the MLS, when someone's taking a listing with solar, they're not classifying it properly, in the description area where you have it. And so there's things being missed. So, when you have a house with solar, whether you're taking a buyer's agent there or you're listing the house, number one, I always recommend getting the contract. If the homeowner doesn't have the contract, maybe they remember who did the installation so they can contact the company and get the contract, and then use them as a resource, because most of them will have a customer service department and they can walk you through, what the homeowner actually has, the terms, the agreements, the buyouts, all those things. And then that way you're educating yourself so that, whether you're listing the home or taking a buyer's agent, you can help guide your client in the right direction on how to market it.
There are certain services that serve real estate that aren't on our time frames. Insurance agents, termite companies, although they work very close with us, they're not necessarily on our time frame. So our emergency isn't their rush.
I understand that. I can relate to that.
I want to make sure that you get involved with the solar company. I think our wonderful coaching student Jacob had to call him about 5 times to actually get the person who knew what was going on and stick with it. So you may have to stick with it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time they will help. And if you're not getting help, you can call me and I'll take a look at it for you. Any of the PACE programs, that they would be more than likely to help. You may have to call with the homeowner in front of you, because they probably won't give the agent direct information.
Yeah,
but
good point.
You can sit down with the homeowner and make the phone call there.
And then a benefits page, like I said, would be useful to some degree, or
absolutely. I think if you have a home that uses energy is expensive here, if their utility bill is $4,000 and their lease payment or their power purchase is $2,000, well, that's a savings of $2,000. So using that, showing that in the description and
may not only get the solar transferred successfully, but might have an effect on whether you're getting the sales price
absolutely
that you want, because you're showing the value there, especially when we're going over market. In California, we have a buyer's market going on right now.
Absolutely.
And everybody's going over market and
They
trying
are.
to squeeze it in. You want to talk about how to discover if there's a lien on the property?
I was just going to mention that. I mean, one of the big things is checking the tax records to make sure to see if there's any sort of lien.
Reading your property profile. Yeah.
Yeah. Seeing if there's a hero lien or if there's a lease. Because again, that word prepaid, a lot of homeowners feel like they own it. They don't even realize there's a lien on their property. And so, doing all this research up front and front loading your efforts means that when it gets down to the end and it's about to close, these things don't pop up. But also doing that due diligence will help you, list the home property or help your buyer, on how, if they fall in love with the house, you have to address that situation. Because in many cases, if it's a 25-year lease or power purchase agreement and it's just a standard one and it's an average size system, you're talking about somebody taking over $30,000 or more, $50,000 debt, over that time. And then after that time period, what happens? They don't own it still. So, you have to understand your options, or if there's buyouts, and negotiate certain things like that. So,
and they're not easy to remove either, right? Like you can't just decide to remove a solar system under a lease.
Most leases and power purchase agreements, it's stuck there on the home, and that in most cases you can't take it. I won't say 100%. I believe there are a few organizations that are saying, oh, if you move, you can take it with you. but for the most part, it's stuck there on that home for that period of time. So it's almost like you've committed to a new utility at whatever that agreement is the home has per se, or actually the homeowner has, because if the new buyer doesn't want to assume it or transfer it, well, you're pretty much stuck paying it off or staying put.
Well, we're sure grateful to have you, and we're going to be posting your information, so we appreciate the calls You're going to take for us, and if we can, us brokers, Allison James brokers, can be of any support, feed those agents back to us, and we're happy to take those calls. Any last thoughts for me?
I'll just leave with this: front load your efforts. Whenever you see a home with solar, just really do your due diligence up front. Check the tax records. Find out if you're going to show a home. Find out from that agent if they have the contract, just so you have all the tools in your tool bag to have a successful transaction. And
mine is very similar. Mine's going to be face the fear, because they are scary to us right now. We don't know what's going on. They interfere with sales. They don't feel like something we've got our hands around, which is why I wanted you here today.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll feature you again after the new year as well, certainly in my territory for sure. So we're grateful to have you. Thanks everybody for being with us, and reach out to Justin. Have a great day.
I'm here to help.
Okay.
Thanks.
Have a great day, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.